it's gonna come if you get up. Hold me like you never lost your patience. Let's take a drink of heaven. Do you remember all the danger we came from?
Yes, so Hairless here. Today we have our first Patreon request. Thank you to Dónde está, biblioteca for this one. So this is Lost on You by Scott HOYING of Pentatonics and Mario Jose, who is Scott's friend and an ex-member of the Berklee College of Music's a cappella group called Pitch Slapped. I imagine context will be important here as this is a mix of two songs, so I'm going to focus on that in this introduction. I was informed that Scott had the idea to sing Lost on You by LP to HANS Zimmer's track called Time, which was used in the film Inception. I know the HANS Zimmer track Time, but I didn't know the song Lost on You by LP, so I went ahead and listened to that quite a few times to really get a harmonic snapshot of it and understand the melodies. And not gonna lie, I really like it. It's a very, very catchy song. It has 535 million views on YouTube, so clearly I'm not the only one who feels this way. Pentatonics are masters of creating medleys or mashups or combining multiple songs, at least from what I've seen so far. My last reaction, in fact, was La La Latch, a mashup of La 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 and Latch. It was Scott's idea to mix those two together. Scott, I feel, has a really good ear for this kind of thing because it's quite atypical to mix two seemingly unrelated songs together, or at least songs that don't have an obvious connection to each other, such as the same chord progression. If two songs have the same harmonic progression or chord progression, you'll be able to mix them so easily. They should, by definition, be interchangeable. These two songs here, Time and Lost on You, are different, and also they're different in terms of their temperament, their feel. Lost on You is quite upbeat and Time the opposite. Let me show you a quick clip from each of them. Here is Lost on You by LP. And here's Time by HANS Zimmer. So I'm intrigued to see what they do here because, as I've said in my previous Pentatonics reactions, you can't just take a melody and shove it on top of any other song. If the underlying harmonies are different, you're gonna have to make changes to either the melody or the arrangement itself. And also, I have no idea what to expect here because Time has no lyrics. It's an instrumental piece, so it probably makes sense for them to take Lost on You's lyrics and put them in Time somehow. But I've learned with Pentatonics to expect the unexpected, or maybe it's just better to not expect anything at all. Alright, that's enough of the introduction. Let's get straight into it.
When you get older, plainer, saner, will you remember all the danger we came from? Burning like embers, falling tender, longing for the days of no surrender years ago. And will you know? No. So smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's gonna come if you get 'em, 'cause it's all I ever wanted was you. All I ever wanted was you. I'll never get to heaven, 'cause I'll never get to heaven. Let's raise a glass or two to all the things I lost on you. Tell me, are they lost on you? Oh, just that you could cut me loose. Oh, after everything I've lost on you, is that lost on you? Wishing I could see the machinations, understand the toil of expectation.
Okay, let's do a pause there. I'm going to need to try and explain exactly what's going on in terms of the mix of the two songs. This is a heads up if you're not interested in the analysis theory side of things. Okay, wow. Firstly, Mario's voice. What a voice. I'm going to talk about that later. The arrangement itself, they have literally put the melody from Lost on You on top of Time, almost exactly the same melody. This is really interesting to me because we have examples of instrumental music where someone's gone and created lyrics for that song, such as Laura Fabian's Adagio. If you want to see my video to that, do check it out. But taking lyrics from one song that's completely different to an instrumental song and putting them on top without really changing the melody, you need to have an ear for that. Scott must have a real talent for that because not many people would hear those two bits of music and go, I think I can make this work. Alright, so let's go over what we've heard so far. Again, if you don't want to hear the analysis theory side of things, you can skip ahead ahead with the timestamp here. So, the very, very opening. They're using the music from Time, which means that we're using the chord progressions of Time. Time uses these 4 chords and just repeats them over and over and over. Cue Hairless from the future to show you what they are. These are the 4 chords that are repeated throughout the whole song. A minor, E minor, G major, D major. So it's important to remember that it's this 4 chord passage that just repeats throughout the whole song. In the original Time, you have the 4 chords that open. That's the first phase. And then it repeats for the second phase. In this version here, Scott and Mario have chosen not to include that first phase. They go straight in with the second phase. So it's the same 4 chords, but they are slightly different. So in Time, this is chord number 2. You hear the top note. But in Scott and Mario's version, chord number 2 is this. See the top note. And if we go back to Time, when we hear chord 2 of the second phase, that's the same chord. So with Scott and Mario's version, we're starting from the second 4 chord pattern. Why have they done this? Who knows? Maybe they wanted to start with slightly more scrunchy chords because the first 4 chord pattern in Time is the most basic, or maybe for time constraint reasons, or maybe just preference. Scott starts off with the singing.
You get older, plainer, saner, will you remember?
I think it's important to consider the lyrics because the lyrics are the addition to Hans Zimmer's Time here. The music underneath is the same, it's just the lyrics that are the new thing. And it's a song with very interesting lyrics. I'll leave them on screen here so you can pause and read them if you want to. I think the safe interpretation of these lyrics is that it's about a failing relationship, the separation of 2 people. It's a sad song, which I think makes the original even better. It's upbeat, but it does still have these obvious sad undertones, as though there's still hope, maybe. So by setting these lyrics to Hans Zimmer's Time, where the music is so different, it creates a completely different feel. But it is also kind of the same in terms of mood. That's a sentence that doesn't really make sense, but we're going to go with it. As I said before, Time is just the same 4 chords repeated over and over and over. So how come it doesn't get boring? Well, it's because there's a constant build-up of the texture of instrumentation, volume. It's just getting bigger and growing throughout the whole thing. You know, this is later on, until it then comes back down at the end. So that's one way the lyrics are treated differently. It's the music underneath them. That's a given. The rhythm, has that changed in the melody? The original?
When you get older, plainer, saner. When you get older, plainer, saner.
No, it's the same rhythms. We're a tiny bit slower than the original, but barely. How about the melody? Has that changed? No, it hasn't. Not until the last note. The melody itself here is the reason why these 2 songs work together. This melody that we just heard, it's just 2 notes. Do, 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 do. They're 5 notes apart, which we call a fifth. And why they work is because it's much easier to fit just 2 notes into the scales of different chords, because every chord has a different scale, than taking a melody that has loads of runs in it and say 5 notes. At a simple level, that is the reason here. So at the end of this first phrase, we get a little scale downwards.
Danger we came from.
Cue Hairless from the future to show you this. For the scale down at the end of that phrase of the melody, the 2 songs are in different keys, so I'll play everything transposed into Scott's key. It's this. But instead of ending on that note, Scott ends here, so he goes. Why Scott changes that last note is to fit in with the chords underneath at this moment in time. When he sings the word from, the chord changes.
Danger we came from.
That's a new chord there. So the note that Scott sings has to work with that chord. The chord that we move to on that note is the chord of G. If you did the exact same melody as the original, we'd end up with this, which you can see is now an E minor 7 chord. It's not the G chord we were after. It means that the 4 chord repeated passage all the way through has now been transformed. It's been changed, which means that the whole song is now changed too. To think of this 4 chord repeated pattern visually, these are the 4 chords we get in Time. These are the note names down here, and this is chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4. Chord 1 is A, and then we go up to chord 2, E, and then we go back down past A to G, and then we go up again to D. So you can see the shape of it. But if Scott kept the same melody and ended here in that E minor 7 chord, this is what the pattern would now look like. You can see the difference in overall shape between the 2, and this really makes a huge difference to the overall sound. I hope that makes sense. So Scott has done the smallest adjustment to the melody, just 1 note, the last note of that phrase, but he needed to do it. Alright, then we get Mario's entry. Blimey, what a voice.
So smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's going down.
It's almost husky because it's airy, but not airy in the way that most singers would choose to add air to their voice. And I like how Scott is singing lower as well before Mario comes in to make Mario's entry all the more of like a shock factor. And look at Scott's face here as well. He's like, go on Mario, you show him. And then this section I think is great. It's a call and response between the two, just singing in octaves, so the same notes 1 octave apart. They're not making any slight tweaks to the melody. Everything is exactly the same in relation to the note before and the note after, and it's the same as the original song. Again, this is cool because the chords underneath this melody in the original song are different. Again, cue Sir Hairless from the future to show you on piano. Again, transposing into Scott's key for comparison. This is how the original will sound with the 3 chord changes it has. And this is how it sounds in this version with just 2 chord changes. They both end in the chord of E minor. But they just took a different route of getting there. Yeah, I just love Mario's voice. I think it's great. It reminds me of Israel Kamaka Wewoli a little bit, in the sense that their chest and head voices kind of seem one at the same. It's this kind of airy sound, as I said before. You know, it's genuinely difficult to tell which voice he's using to sing here. On those upper notes there, it's so powerful. It sounds like a chest voice, but also a blend on that B up there. But then on the A underneath that, on the word to, he uses his falsetto. It's such a seamless mix for him. Also again, just to note Scott's appreciation of that, look at his smile. Trying to break out there. And I really like their decision to sing the chorus in octaves. No harmonies, it's pure. Alright, well, I hope that explained why these songs work well together, at least a little bit. A bit longer than I would have liked, but it's important, I think, to get this information in. Alright, let's carry on.
Wishing I could see the machinations, understand the toil of expectations in your mind. Hold me like you never lost your patience. Tell me that you love me more than hate me all the time. And you're still mine. So smoke up if you got up, 'cause it's going down. All I ever wanted was you. Let's take a drink of heaven. This can turn around. Let's raise the glass unto all the things I've lost on you. Oh, tell me, are they lost on you? Oh, just that you could cut me loose. Oh, after everything I've lost on you. I've lost on you. Is that lost on you? When we get older, plainer, saner, will you remember all the danger we came from?
Oh, what a voice Mario has. Wow, wow, wow. You know, when you just love someone's voice, the power behind it.
You never lost your patience. Tell me that you love me more.
And then we get the first time where they sing in harmonies together, as the music's really building up underneath. And they do some cool things with their harmonies, like this part, for example, I think is very interesting. So here, Mario has done something quite cool and unexpected to build suspense and tension. I've spoken about suspensions before, where you hold one note that doesn't belong in a chord, and then you move it to its correct place in the next chord, which then resolves, releasing the tension that's been building up. So this part that they're just singing, we have the chord of D, and what we call a 4-3 suspension in D, because you're holding on the 4th note and moving it down to the 3rd note, would sound like this. You hear that. But here, they do a reverse suspension. So Mario starts on that top note, So we're already in the chord of D, and then he moves down to the dissonant note of G that we normally would move away from. And as you can see there, Scott comes off to avoid this big dissonant sound. Right, this part that I'm about to play is nice. Notice how Mario comes in on this note, and then Scott takes over before singing his part. I believe this is the highest I've ever heard Scott sing in his chest voice, actually. That A up there. These high notes, I'm sensing a theme of these high notes. Just after that, we get a D from Mario. That's one note above what I call the wow moment for operatic tenors, the top C. If you watch my Dimash videos, you'll recognise this clip. Blimey, I mean, get Mario into pentatonics now. What a voice. Then here, this is almost like the climax moment. Both of them singing high up, using a blended voice. Right at the top of their ranges. This is power, climax. And here on the word to, notice how meticulous they are with the type of voice they're choosing to sing this note. They've just come from power and now into their falsetto. And then Mario just goes straight back into that power voice. It's a temporary release, nice harmony, and then just straight back in, boom. Then this part, we've got Mario dominating the melody. At this pitch, it is better suited for his voice. Because it's very high. So Scott recognises this, takes the lower harmonies, and then Scott adds in this descending run, a very Scott type of vocal run. And it's contrasting Mario, who's staying in the heights up there. It's literally just opening up this performance. And then this part here, again, it's just great for building tension and then releasing it. Just as we go into the quieter section. What they're doing here is you have Scott underneath Mario, and then Mario comes closer to him, and we're thinking, are they going to sing in unison again? But then they go into harmonies. So this is what we're seeing. And then we end with these nice oohs.
Will you remember
And then Mario's angelic oohs above Scott's melody. What a nice touch to finish with. Yeah, wow, that was unexpected. Really didn't know what they'd do there. I think the main takeaways here are Scott has a great ear for picking out what song can work with something else, even if it's not obvious. Mario, what a great voice. Wow, honestly. This song was just kind of building up and just power, and we can see the power of both of their voices. I think that's a very, very good display of vocal prowess, if I can use that word. Alright, well there we are. Thank you again, Dónde está, biblioteca, for the request. If you want a guaranteed request reaction, you can do so by joining the egg tier of either my Patreon or YouTube memberships, links in the description below. As always, thank you very much for watching. We'd appreciate a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.